Welcome back, and we're in the mood for Spurs. Yep, these are Spurs. If you know about Westclox and stuff, then you might be familiar with the Mark 1 Spur, which is what these are, or at least variants of them. I think these are all made in Scotland, so if you're a Westclox collector from United States or Canada, or the area where they got clocks from there, you might not be familiar with these three particular models. And I'll show you the fronts of them so you can realise how strange they are. So yeah, this is, you might be going, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right. Yeah, the Mark 1 Spur, normally has a sort of Art Deco kind of dial to it. Whereas this one, I don't know if you're familiar with the model called the General, but that is the same dial as on the General, I think. Which is a slightly more thin around the edges model. I think slightly later than the Spur. I think the Spur was introduced in about 38 or something. I think about 38. Whereas the Westclox factory in Scotland opened in about 48 or 47 or something. So there's a whole 10 years, and they may as well have put a different dial on it. Although I have seen Scottish-made Spurs with the original Art Deco dial on them. So yeah, there we go with that. And this is a really nice brown dial, ivory case, gold rim. I think this might be brass underneath. I don't know if they all had brass front bezels on them. I'm going to call this a bezel. I think that's probably more of a bezel, but it's still the front of the case anyway. So I think this is a brass piece. The back might be as well. I'm not sure what the older ones are made out of. But yeah, that's that. And in the middle we have this, and this is the sort of, I guess, more traditional, archetypal, I think is the word, Scottish Spur, Mark 1. It's just a style one, really. That's what they are on clock history, and where, if you're a clock collector, you're probably more familiar with the me called style. So I'll say style 1 Spur. This is from 1951. I've had this one for years. This is one of the first ones I've ever owned, these Westclox clocks. I think I started collecting in about 2018, maybe 2019. I think about 2018. So yeah, this I've probably had since then. Not that long ago, but it's older than this channel. So that's that. And this is not originally this colour. When we first had this, I think it was repainted cream colour. Not dissimilar to that, but they've repainted on over the bezel edge and the screws. I've left the original paint, well, not the original paint, but the paint that was on there, on these screws, so I can remind myself what it looked like when I first had it. And yeah, it was some sort of greeny tinted cream colour. Now, according to the Westclox advert, I might pull up a picture if I remember. If not, I will probably post a link to it. If I forget that as well, I'm sorry. But yeah, the original colour for this Spur would have probably been, I think they were called Dove Grey and some others. I remember the one being called Dove Grey, and that's probably what this was. It's got a very slight blue tint to the middle of the dial. And I don't know if Dove Grey is a monochrome kind of grey or it does have some blue to it, but I think it must have had some sort of blue to it because it's blue in the middle. So we went for a blue, but I think this blue is a bit too dark. But oh well, I think it still works. And yeah, this Spur, 1951, and it's got these brass feet on the bottom of it. Now you might notice, hang on a minute, the Spurs I'm used to, if you're from America, I'm not sure about the Canadian ones. I think the Canadian ones might have had this kind of base as well. But yeah, the American, well, USA ones, the first ones had this metal hoop as the base, and they would have sat on that. But these ones instead have two little brass feet and a leg at the back, much like the Bonita did, or does rather. But this is of course older, I think. This is the same thing, but instead of those brass feet, I think this must be slightly later than 51. Has these sort of pressed out little knobbles on the bottom, and they come out the front of the case. This one has been worked on before. I can't remember if I properly serviced it because I've had this for so long. I think it was either an early repair where I just sort of took it apart and gave it a wipe down and oiled it and stuff, or it was a more recent one where I probably cleaned up the pivots properly and everything. Because remember, repairing is not the main focus of what I do. I'm more of a collector, and I just like to see these things getting running again. So yeah, here is the cream spur, and this has just got knobbles on the bottom. So that makes me think this is probably later than that. So I should put them this way around. And I'll get to that one in a second. But you can see it's still got 4 screws around the edges. And I'll just pause it because I remembered this back looks awfully familiar. Right, this here is my Scottish Tide. And this, by the looks of it, probably came out at the same time as this spur here. I don't know what's happened there. It looks like someone tried to bend the regulator slot out a bit. But you might go, hang on a minute, that's not the right dial for the Tide. That looks like the Logan dial. You'd be correct, because that dial was used on the Logans. The Logans here came about 1958, so much later. And by then they had put a more mid-century modern kind of dial. Because I think this dial goes back to 1945. But this particular Tide is from 1952, I think. So that would probably be this. I don't know if this is what date this is yet, because I haven't opened it. I literally got it today. And if you're watching this, and I got these off eBay, if you're the seller and you're watching this, they're in good hands. It's all good. Because I've had an instance in the past of someone I bought the clocks, or the movements in that case, off on eBay, actually saw the video, which is pretty cool. So yeah, they're in good hands, don't worry. So yeah, same colour, same brass winding keys and knobs and screws. I reckon these probably were in the same catalogue. So that's interesting. I did find an advert for this as well, but I'll get to that another time when I probably do a video on this. So yeah, that's that one. So, what's this other one here? Well, this is a later one, and I haven't opened this up, but I know this is from 1960, because I shone a torch through the regulator slot. I won't be able to do it now, but you can actually see on this one, stamped into the plate, all the way through there, shining a torch, and you can actually see it says 60 stamped on it. I'll open these up anyway in this video to get a first impression of the movements, and this one, as the seller said on eBay, is completely seized up. The knobs do not turn, either of them do not turn at all. I haven't tried out that winder on there or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was seized up too. Alarm's fine, but no motion from the balance wheel. No idea what's gone inside here. But yeah, this must be a slightly later one, 1960, because they've skipped out on 2 of the screws. Just put in a couple of knobbles in there just to keep it steady. And it's got those pressed out feet on it. So there we go, 8 minutes in, and we've done a little overview of these. This, I'm not sure if it is a spur or not, because around, I'm going to say 1955 or something, probably around that time, they decided to not put the names of the model on the back. This one says Spur on it, but it seems to follow the pattern of this one and the Tide. Instead of made in Scotland, which these probably were, made in USA and UK. And that's what the first ones made here had for the first couple of years. So probably more like 52 or 53 than 55. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly which bits were made in the USA and which bits were made in the UK, or they're just talking about Westclox in general being made in the USA and the UK, although they may as well put Canada as well. Maybe the backs of the cases were made in the USA, because here they got made in Scotland and a nice little circular thing, which they had up until the 70s, I think. Whereas this just has Spur on it. So yeah, this is a floral or a dial one. And the reason I'm unsure about this being called Spur or not, I mean, you might think this is obviously another Mark 1 Spur, because it looks the same movement, same case, same everything. As it doesn't have that on it, I would normally say this was a Spur. However, there exists a model called the Kestrel, not to be confused with the Australian Kestrel model, which was different. The Kestrels were this, but with a plastic dial like on the Lark. I've got the Lark videos up on my channel, I think, still. So if you want to watch them, I'll try and give it a repair. But yeah, as that wasn't called the Spur, it was called the Kestrel. I'm sort of unsure about this one being also called the Spur, because that makes me think they probably changed up some of the model names for some reason. So, there we have the overview, and I think it is due time to dig into these, and I will open them up, because as part of these new videos I will also be exploring the movements and just showing you guys what's going on inside, the date stamps, and what's making them not work. And this one in the middle, I plan on doing a collab. Let's hope that happens. No guarantee or not, but I'm pretty sure it will, with the Gregola Horology Club on YouTube. Great channel, check him out. Shouted about last time, why not do it again? And we're probably going to be doing a collab on 66 movements. And these are the movements inside here. I'll just grab one out of a little box. There we go. This is the kind of movement I'm talking about. Cheese wheel. Now, I said cheese wheel before, and I may as well show you what that is. This little brass cam on the front, that is the alarm trip cam. And basically, it looks a bit like a wheel of cheese. So, yeah, we call it cheese wheel in the community. I don't know if it'll catch on as a name, but I think it's accurate and it's funny, so we may as well. And yeah, that's that. This is the 66 movement. It goes this way up in the case, which is slightly unusual. A lot of the time a movement will be rectangular upright in the case like that, however these ones are in line with the alarm knob. They're mounted diagonally like that. So that's that. And that's probably what you'll see inside these. So let's start with the one I've already seen inside of. The typical Scottish Spur. And to open this up, I'm just going to go through the front, as I think that's the only way to do it really. So there are 4 screws around the perimeter of this. One on each side. I'll get a little pot to put these in. That one will do. It's got taper pins in there, but I can tell screw apart from a taper pin, so I'll do that. And these screws on the back are identical to the ones on the sides, so don't worry about mixing them up. You should be safe. And this paint we put on here, I can't remember what kind it is. I think it might be Hammerite, I'm not sure, but it's lasted very well. These alarm clocks get knocked about a fair amount. Not only are they shelved, but I do use them frequently as alarm clocks to wake me up. I am very much used to the sound of a ticking alarm clock, and it's, you know, quite pleasurable once you get used to it. So I recommend, if you've got a vintage alarm clock that works and you're happy to let it run, you can see I've marked 51 on there to help me date it without taking it out of the thing. Then yeah, go ahead and enjoy the experience. Alright, now here it is without the front. I'll just go through this. This glass is a special kind of glass. It's a sort of a pillow shape, and because it's such an unusual piece, I recommend only buying a Spur if the glass is intact, because a piece of glass like that, you won't be able to make another one really. You know, the cost of making another one of those is probably 10 times more than the value of that, unless for some reason, you know, it's super special. If you've got a nice Spur without glass, like this dial's really nice. A few spots of rust underneath it, but in terms of going yellow, it has barely gone yellow at all. Yeah, if you want, you just get another Spur. They're not exactly uncommon, and this one in the back, this pink one, sort of enough looking floral Spur, is a great candidate because all the glass is the same. So you can go ahead and take that off there and use that one for parts if you wanted to. But I recommend just buying ones with intact glass if you were doing that. Just for that reason. Glass is one of the main, you know, things for a clock, especially luminous ones, like this one. It can be a hazard sometimes if the older ones don't have glass on them, because of the paint might have radium in it. So yeah, I advise, if you're buying an alarm clock, one of these Spurs, for example, always try and get one with intact glass. Even if it works, it runs, all the knobs are there. Glass is one of the most important things to have. And try not to break as well. So I'm just going to undo these winding keys by turning them in the opposite direction of the arrow, like that. And you can take these out of the case without having to remove the knobs, which is useful. And we've got 4 screws holding this in the back. So I'll get this little pot again. This video might be a bit long, I'm afraid, because we're doing 3 clocks. This is my first time doing more than one in this new format. So yeah, hopefully it stays with a reasonable time. It's already 15 minutes. So I might cut out the rest of this unscrewing for the other 2 of these, because they're the same. And once you've taken out all of those, like that, hold it upright with the dial up to the air, because otherwise it will fall out, and you can just do that and remove it out the case. So this movement dated 1051 up there. I'm not sure where this was made. I think I read somewhere that when the Scottish factory opened, they were directly making movements and cases in-house. However, I'm not sure, to be honest, because the normal Scottish movements have 1051 UK on them. So if I grab that movement I looked at earlier, it's actually got a little identifier on it saying it was made in the UK. For example, 1262 UK, this movement's from December 1962 and it's made in the UK, or Scotland in this case. You might notice some difference in the alarm hammer as well, and I'll get to that when I do the 66 collab, because I've made a little bit of documentation about those, so that'll be interesting to go over. So here is the dial pan and dial and hands of this. I'm not going to remove the hands because this is all we really need to see. Same on the other side really, except you can see the motion work on the alarm cheese wheel, and that's what it'll look like basically on the same and everything. Oh, sorry, I had to grab some water there because I talked myself dry. Ooh, anyway, yeah, let's carry on as we are, and let's open up the other 2. Completely new to me. They literally arrived in a box today, and I'm very excited to see what they're like inside. So I will cut to the part where I've removed all the screws, but I haven't pulled anything off. So I've removed the 4 perimeter screws from the front of the case on this one. And looking at this, I'm going to take a bit of precaution, because you can see there, it looks a bit strange, and that's because someone has removed all the luminous paint, which probably had radium in it, looking how brown it is, off the hands for some reason. I don't know if it flaked off itself or someone physically scraped them off. A bit's come off there as well. I can't see any floating around inside. There is a little air gap in between under there where it's probably been dropped or something. There's a little air gap underneath there where the bits of paint probably fell out years ago. However, to take a bit of precaution, I'm going to very carefully open it this way up. I haven't removed the back screws yet. And I just want to see if anything, if I can see any dust that gets caught under there, I will pause it and then clean that up. Because if that's got radium in it and it's dust, then that is where the hazard is. Okay, I'll put that dial there. And it looks like I can't see any dust. I will clean this out anyway with a damp towel, just in case. I'll clean this glass out and everything, and then get back to it because I don't want to risk my lungs. So back in a sec. So we're back, and I've cleaned those off. And you can see, as I thought, the front of this appears to be made out of brass stamped. It looks like it is, and that makes sense because the front of the tide is brass, and that's because it's got that brass little bezel rim on there. And in order to get the brass bezel rim on here, they probably made all of this out of brass as well. Either that or brass plated steel or something. But I don't know. I think it might be brass, looking at the edges of it, but I don't know really. So unless someone does, I think that'll be assumed to be brass. So I'll just put that aside, like that. Alright, so here is the dial, and you can see it's got a bit of a model name on the bottom of it. Made in USA and UK. model, zoom in a bit so we can see what I'm looking at. Model B66 AA2L. And if we compare that with our normal kind of plain dial spur, we have made in USA and UK, model B66AA. So that makes me think, I don't think I've seen a luminous version of this dial. So maybe, this being L at the end, maybe 2L, maybe that is just the luminous equivalent of this. It's worth a thought, I think, because I don't think I've seen any black versions of this dial, or brown, and I think this probably answers it, because I haven't seen any plain versions of this either. So this makes sense to be the luminous dial version of the early 50s Spur we got going on there. So, as if you can see around the corner there is a massive explosion of mainspring going on. And that's not good. I'll just have a quick look around the edges to see if there's anything crawling around. Alright, I'm going to remove the rest of these screws. Okay, welcome back. I just realised something I said earlier was completely wrong, and that was that the screws are the same. I don't know why I said that, because actually the ones that go through the back of the clock are much longer. And if you're looking at your own Spur whilst watching this, you probably realise that too. So if I remember to cut what I said out earlier, I will. However, I don't really plan on editing this video much, so I will probably just put a big disclaimer in the description about it. So yeah, sorry about that, about the confusion. If you're probably watching that moment going, oh man, he's got it wrong, don't worry, I've remembered it later. So here is the movement, the 66 movement of that luminous Spur, and we can see the date stamp is 254 up there, and that means, which is quite interesting, that the USA and UK changeover to Scotland and the removal of that didn't come until as later as I thought. I thought it would be sort of 51, 53 area. It's 54. That is, you know, I've seen 57, maybe even 56 dated Scottish stamped ones. So it must have happened between 54 and 57, maybe even 55, who knows. So here is the movement, very dusty, very dirty, mainspring's broken, you can see there, a break in it, and this is a great candidate for a service, so I will put this back in its thing and save it until I want to do a video on it, which might even be the collab. I've just noticed that if you look closely, you can see some scratched lines in the dial, and they do not follow the arc of the hands at all. They are as if someone had scraped it like that, and I don't think I did that. So maybe there was a period of time where this had broken glass and someone had it and used it still, and someone decided to scratch it up or something before it maybe got replaced with new glass. That's a worrying thought, because someone probably, the person who did that probably knocked all the dust off these hands and probably inhaled it, so I don't know how they're doing that now. So I'll put that back there and put this back on just to protect ourselves. I'll just do that for now. So now on to the final and third Mark 1 Spur, Style 1 Spur rather, which is this pink one over here, which is completely seized up. We know it's from 1960, but we'll still be pretty interested in seeing why it's seized up. Alright, I was going to take all these screws out in one go, because we're really getting a long video, but just look at that. This is stuck in with some sort of goop. It's horrible. I don't know what that is. It's like old oil and grease, and look at that, that's disgusting. Yeah, that is a filth bucket. Alright, so here is the glass, and look at this, ready? The normal Spur glass, right, like this, has corded off corners, like that. There's a word for that, I can't remember what it is. Let's say they've been clipped corners on it. Whereas this one from 1960, a much later one, well, 6 or 7 years later, has pointed corners on it. And bearing in mind, that blue one was the only Spur I've owned for many years. This one coming along has completely shocked me, seeing that they didn't always have the same glass. This one has pointed corner glass, and you can see it looks like it was just a square piece of glass that got deformed, melted or something. So let's draw our attention to this filthy movement, which is completely seized up. And you can see here it says made by Westclox Limited, Scotland. 121295. It looks like it said either side of the little hole down there. If you can see that, I'll zoom in a bit. Just there, very small writing, and a load of rust. But yeah, this dial is atypical. I'm going to say. Let's look at the. Oh, this is all coming in my hands. Look at that. That's just from touching it. This dial is the older one, and for some reason they decided to put these wings on it, sticking out. I don't know what that's for. Maybe we'll find out, but this is horrible. I'm just touching this thing. I'm just touching the edges of this, and this is just going all over me. I'm definitely washing my hands after this. So let's... Oh, this is a wrecker. Very unpleasant. I'm just going to... Yeah. Take the rest of these out. Only 2 on the back this time. 2 longer screws, of course. Don't forget that I made that mistake. I shall make that clear, because I don't want any shenanigans going on. There we go. Got this nice little spoon holder thing. And this movement, oh look at that, just came out like that. Here is the rusty spotted case. I swear there is a thing called a rusty spotted cat. I think it's the smallest cat in the world. Anyway, here we have it. Why is there a date stamp up there? I'll get to that in a second. What is this coming out? I don't know, it's like some sort of plant fibre. Don't know what that's doing in there. This looks like it's been in a garden and in a restaurant and in a kitchen sink and in the toilet all at once. This is horrible, this movement. This is the worst 66 movement I've seen in my life. Honestly, it really is. It's got the later type squared off bell and hammer. It says UK 260 on there instead of 260 UK. Some of them had the UK before, some of them after. But there's also a date stamp on the other plate which says 160, which is really strange. Look, I'll zoom you in. 160. Don't know if you can see it there, but you probably know what I'm saying. 160 there and 260 there. I don't know what on earth happened to this thing. I don't know why it's like that, to be honest. And just an indication of how seized it up, these tabs holding this movement to that dial are not folded over. Usually that would fall back to the hour hand, but it doesn't. Yeah, this thing is so seized up, and I'm not sure why. This thing needs a bath in some sort of chemical. There's some sort of plastic bit glued onto there with goodness knows what. The whole thing is swamped in green gloop and is all bubbled up around it, and that is, that's awful. I'll probably have to swap out some of those parts, considering this is just so dirty and filthy that it's a miracle that this thing, hasn't turned into some sort of monster. So let's try and get this video under half an hour. I'm sorry it's been a very long video. By the way, this is sort of textured paper, I may as well point that out, like the early sleep meters were. Yeah, Scottish sleep meters, that is. Brown hands as well, interesting. I'll probably do another video on this, a follow-up video if I feel like it. If not, this is the last you'll see of this, because I'll probably end up servicing it in my own time, if not using it for parts, because, look at it, it's a filter. Yeah, so sorry about the long video, but hope you enjoyed it, looking at these 3 interesting Spurs. Sorry about the mistake I made earlier, try and get it under half an hour. These are made in Scotland. Hope you enjoyed Scottish Westclox, more of these to come.